Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Brett Luxford, the Chief Executive Officer with Mitchell Shire Council, and I'd just like to welcome you all here today. I'd just like to acknowledge we are also on Tanarong land and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I also want to acknowledge it's been a tough time for the community again. We stood in the main hall at the Seymour Secondary School 15 months ago, dealing with the October 22 floods, and to have incident occur in such a short space of time has been a challenge. I think we were very fortunate that it didn't reach the levels that it reached in 2022, but we stand here today dealing with a significant major flood event again, and acknowledge the people who've been impacted by it, but also the community that's still dealing with it and dealing with the effects of the first one, and this raises real concerns for everyone. Can also acknowledge that we are online today, so we are live streaming through the Facebook and social media, so acknowledge those people who weren't able to make it today and who are joining us online. I guess today's really been an opportunity to provide some important information. We've got a number of agency representatives here today who will give you updates on their information, but also an opportunity to for you to ask some questions and for us to, across the agencies and across the council, to see how we might be able to answer those questions. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the people we'll hear from today. So on our panel today we have our SCS Operations Manager, Brendan Corboy. Brendan, thank you. Our Emergency Recovery Victoria CEO, Mariella Diaz. Up across to my right again. Goulburn Murray Water's Andrew Shields. Our Community Recovery Committee members, Neil Beer and Ellen Lowinston, who will represent the Community Flood Recovery Committee. The Goulburn Broker Catchment Management Authority is represented by Joel Lister, who's here today. Thank you, Joel. We also have some Mitchell Shire Council Flood and Recovery Manager, Kelly Masuris, who's also with us. Have I covered everyone on the panel? Except for the Mayor. So, and other agencies who are in the room today, who you may need to touch base with, include Agriculture Victoria, Beyond Housing, Goulburn Valley Water, Department of Families, Fairness and Housing, Department of Health, Victoria Police, Telstra, representatives from Regional Development Victoria, I think, are in the room, and Ambulance Victoria, as well as the Red Cross and a range of other council support providers who are here. So to kick off things today, can I invite our Mayor, Councillor Louise Bannister, to say a few words. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Brett. And thanks everyone for being here and joining us online during this very difficult time. Firstly, I just want to provide a quick update across the Shire and in particular on roads to begin with. There's been several road closures, and the most updated list that we have are Glenarua Asheds Bridge Road, Glen Hope Taylor's Lane, Hildene Popples Lane, Nulla Vale Malone's Road, Pylong Ladder Hill Road, Sandy Creek Road, Whitegate Road, High Camp Road, Seymour Telegraph Road, Toobarak Middle Springs Road, Sugarloaf Creek Gerard Road and Sunday Creek Gerard Road. Our crews are working continuously to open local roads, but please be safe and adhere to road closure signs and never drive through floodwaters. For an updated list of local road closures, because our teams are working very quickly and we are getting those roads open as soon as possible, please go to the Mitchell Shire website. And for the latest information, please go to Vic Road's website for the main roads. For urgent road hazards on Vic Roads, please call 13 11 70. And for any hazards on our council road, please call council, especially if you come across any lost or wandering animals. Several of our council services have been impacted during these floods, including the Seymour Maternal and Child Health Service, as well as the Seymour Visitor Information Centre. Lions Park and Goulburn Park in Seymour are both closed. Tullarook Reserve is currently closed to the public. The Seymour War Memorial Outdoor Pool is also currently closed. Broadfoot Outdoor Pool, Tullarook Outdoor Pool and the Community Bank Adventure Playground Splash Park at Hadfield Park in Wallen are open. Seymour Resource Recovery Centre and the Seymour Customer and Library Centre have reopened. And please, again, there'll be continuous updates for when these services will open, so please head to the Mitchell Shire website. Regarding waste, all curbside collections have now returned to normal. Trucks will be back to collect bins along any closed roads when roads reopen. If your bin has been missed, please report the missed collection to council. Regarding flood waste and debris, council is aiding those who received water inside their home or business and to please contact us for assistance. Let the customer service team know that your name, contact info address and a brief description of your needs, and they'll put you in touch with the right people to assist you. In regards to sandbagging, if flood water touched your sandbags, contact council or visit the Recovery Hub and we will provide support for their disposal. If floodwater didn't touch them, pour the sand onto your lawn or garden and dispose of the empty Hessian bag. Additional assistance, the Department of Families, Fairness and Housing have announced they'll be assisting applications for personal hardship payments for people who received water through their primary place of residence. So please contact the Recovery Hub to find more about this support. In terms of what community can do now, please remain vigilant. Keep an eye on warnings and advice and follow them. And I don't think I even need to say this, but please continue to support each other. I have to admit, over the last couple of days, I've really admired the community and business owners and how tough you all are facing these sort of announcements so soon after the last devastating floods. I've been in absolute admiration of all of you, but please remember, if you are struggling, don't be ashamed to seek support, ask for help, come to the Recovery Hub here. There's a range of services, even if you just want to talk to someone. Now, for the latest information, for all emergency advice and weather warnings, please follow the Vic Emergency on Facebook or their website or download the app. For council services and impact, please visit our website mitchellshire.vic.gov.au. To report power faults or emergencies, contact AusNet on 13 17 99. For flood and storm assistance, including sandbags, contact SES on 13 25 00. And of course, always call 000 in a life-threatening emergency. And again, as your mayor, can I just say I'm so proud to be a mayor of this community. You're a tough community, and I know we'll get through this one like we did the last one and come out even stronger. Thank you. Brett.
Thank you, Mayor. To get a further update, can I ask Brendan Corboy, manager from SES, to come forward? Brendan. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. I too would also like to acknowledge the Taungurung people of this land, but I'd also like to acknowledge just everyone in this room and online that's been impacted by this emergency. I think when you step back and have a look at it, it's not just this flood, it's not just the last flood, but it's also everything that we've experienced over the last couple of years. That whole COVID experience, everything that's happened since then and even before then. We've had that build-up of emotion, and that emotion is real, and it has an impact on the way that we engage with each other and the way that we perform tasks in the community. And it's really important to remember that, to look after yourself and the community. What I've found with this event is that we're exceptionally lucky that we've had no fatalities. And I put that down to really good planning by the council, our first responders, our SES and CFA volunteers, our Victoria Police partners, and our forest fire management partners who are out there actually doing the work and warning the community. Fantastic job. I don't think we could ask for anything better given the circumstances that we're in. The event that transpired was a tropical moisture that is very hard to predict. Usually with storms and weather during the summer period, we have a really good idea of where rain would fall, not for this event. So it was broad brush. The warnings were across Victoria, and unfortunately, this is the catchment that was one of the worst hit. But we were able to respond quickly and get messaging out as quickly as possible. The river rises that we saw were predominantly in some of the unregulated tributaries like the Sunday Creek, Sugarloaf Creek, up the valley up towards Yea, and a lot of those unregulated rivers were swelled up very quickly and moved through the system. We had the peak here at 6.8 metres in Seymour, and we're expecting the river levels today to get below that minor warning level. So we'll start to see a reduction of the colour on the Vic Emergency app, and we'll start to return to, I guess, a new kind of normal. The one thing that I'm always inspired about, and I think the Mayor touched on it here, is how communities band together and how you support yourself, not just now, but into the future. Because as those that have gone through this before, this is a reset from where you've been 15 months ago, unfortunately. Take the opportunity here today to ask questions. We've got lots of representatives here from all the agencies that can assist you. So this is the opportunity to ask any questions from me. I would like to thank the council formally and also our agency partners that are involved in that. I think that's about it from me, unless anyone's got questions at the end. Or
Thanks, Brendan. I think we might hold our questions to the end. We'll get through our speakers first. We've asked our speakers to make it as brief as possible so we can get to some questions. Can I ask Mariella Diaz, CEO of Emergency Recovery Victoria, to come forward? Thanks, Mariella.
Thanks, Brett. Hi, everyone. I'm the CEO of Emergency Recovery Victoria. So ERV has played a fairly integral role in this community since the floods of 22. And has been, we've got Danny here in the room who has been supporting council and local community members to help set up a lot of the services that have been around for the last 15 months. So like the speakers before me, I do want to acknowledge the terrible loss and stress that you have all been experiencing the last few weeks, in fact the last 15 months. And it's come at a time where one, it's unexpected because we should be having bushfire season, not flood and storm season. But I guess one of the benefits that we have been stood up for a while is that we're not starting from scratch with our services. So the services that have been available here at the Recovery Hub continue to be available to this community. So the Recovery Support Program is the one-on-one case management service that is available to all residents that have experienced either have been directly impacted or indirectly impacted. So I certainly encourage anyone that requires support, individual support, that service is still available. We also have available financial counselling and financial support through DFFH, but also legal advice. A lot of you will already have started to experience insurance issues, and if you have questions or you need support to navigate the insurance system, or even support to navigate support services through council, those services are still available through the recovery hotline that you can contact during business hours. So please feel free to reach out. Our role at the moment is to try and gather information from you and from the response agencies to try and build a bigger picture of what is needed now. Where are the gaps? What further supports are required, and where can we expand our services to support you? So we're actively doing that at the moment, and I'm in regular contact with the Minister's office, Minister Syme's office, to support her to present to government what the needs are. So there are two ways that we get information. As I said, one is through the ICC and response agencies, but also through you. So if you have experienced any damage, if you have experienced any issues, please reach out to council or come to the Recovery Hub. Those things will be logged and will help us build a picture of what else you need and how to support the Recovery Committee to further expand their remit, if that's what they're going to do, which I'm assuming that's what will happen in the coming weeks. Our approach is to be trauma-informed and respectful of the trauma that you've been through and the stress that you've been through. So we try to tailor our services so they meet your needs, so you don't have to tell your story so many times, and that's the benefit of the case support program, is that they can help you navigate that. And secondary to that, and equally as important, our role is to help councils be successful in their role. So, and we back in behind them wherever we can. So I think that's all the time I will take on the agenda today. Thanks, Brett.
Thanks, Mariella. Can I ask now Andrew Shields, who's from Golden Murray Water, to come forward and talk a little bit about Lake Eildon? Thanks. Thanks, Andrew.
No worries, thanks, Brett. So just in the lead up to the event on the weekend, Lake Eildon was about 98% of capacity, or just over, which just gives us about 65,000 megalitres of space in the dam. With the rain that came through, and Brendan touched on this, the system fell most of that rainfall fell in the catchment, sort of around the Campaspe and the Seymour type of catchment. So that's where we saw most of the stream flow responses. We didn't quite get the same rainfall and runoff upstream of Lake Eildon, and hence our flows into Eildon were lower than the kind of response we've seen in this community. Having said that, though, the dam has risen over the last couple of days, so it's now at about 99.5% of capacity. So we stored about 45,000 megalitres of water in the dam, and our releases were on Sunday were 1,000 megalitres a day, which is close to the minimum flows that we have there from the storage. Yesterday we started making some additional releases, so we're at 3,000 yesterday, and we increased that to 5,000 megalitres per day today. And just for context, the flow at the minor flood level immediately below the dam's about 13,000 megalitres a day, so well within the banks. So that water is now moving downstream. It takes about 2 days for the water to get from Eildon to Seymour, and the purpose of that is to try and manage those water levels and try and give us a little bit more space in the dam. So we'll be looking at our demands for water over the next couple of weeks. We're unlikely to see much irrigation demand given the rainfall that's occurred. So yeah, we'll just be continuing to monitor the rainfall forecasts as they are updated every day, and looking at managing those releases based on that information. So I'm happy to take any questions at the end, Brett, but that's a bit of a summary of what's happening at Eildon.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Since the 2022 floods, we've had a Community Recovery Committee in place, and can I ask Neil and Ellen to come forward, who've been representatives on that committee, to say a few words. Thanks, Neil and Ellen.
Thank you, Brett. Look, firstly, there has been a lot already spoken of, but as co-chairs of the Community Recovery Committee, I'd just like to assure you that we are working, that if there are any concerns, and I will say in particular if you've got friends or people that you know that you feel need support, whether it be on a mental basis, whatever, please don't hesitate to come into the hub to acquire that assistance. I must also thank the Mitchell Shire Council employees who are connected with the Recovery Hub for the work that they've not only done in this recent event, but also in the last 15 months or so. Would you like to say a few words? Ellen, you've done a lot of work over the next... Ellen has done a tremendous amount of work in the last few days, and also prior to this event and post the 2022 event. But again, I do thank the committee for the work that they've done and the assistance that they do make available to the community. And I guess we'll hand over to the next speaker unless we'll have questions later on. Thanks.
Thank you, Neil. There will be definitely some time for questions. We want to definitely hear from you, your experience, and get your take on it and answer your questions. Our next speaker from our Golden Broken Catchment Management Authority is Joel Lister. Joel? Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Certainly, my name is Joel Lister. I'm the Deputy Flood Response Manager at the Golden Broken CMA. Normally, I'd just been part of the floodplain team. I also want to acknowledge some of the comments made by the previous speakers, and certainly acknowledge the hurt and the stress that's been occurring in this community over the past 12 to 15 months. Floods are never a great thing, and people living through that sort of are a special breed of people because they band together and do things together. In terms of what we've just seen over the past 4 days, so I want to touch on a bit of an overall summary, and then I'll focus a little bit more locally on Seymour. The rainfall patterns we saw were quite intense over the Sunday and Sugarloaf catchments, through the David Minja Creek catchment, and then King Parrot Creek and the Gay River. Once we went further east from the Gay River, we didn't really see lots of rainfall in response to those systems. When we look at the rainfall that fell compared to 2022, which is obviously an event seared in our memory, The rainfall was a bit more patchy overall, but in some areas it was actually a lot more intense. So we didn't have the same uniform rainfall we saw back in October 2022. And in some cases, Ashbridge being an example out in the Sugarloaf Creek catchment, we had a one-day total of 154 mil of rain, which I think from memory might actually be a record for that gauging station. So in some areas we actually had more rain in 24 hours on Monday, Sunday night into Monday, than we did in 48 hours in the lead up to October 2022. So it sort of is a bit of an indicator that there was a potential there. But what we saw was the response wasn't the same. We didn't have the same gauge response we saw through all our catchments because the catchment was a little bit drier. We didn't have that same runoff capability, and because the rain didn't go for as long. So whilst we had some very intense periods of rain, and certainly that was experienced in Yea and the lower King Parrot Creek and parts of the Sunday Sugarloaf Creek, we didn't have the same sort of volumes of water moving down the system. We saw a much flashier response in parts of the catchment. The waters came up quite quick, but they also have dissipated quite quick in some areas. And certainly it's a blanket statement, but I know different areas will have experienced slightly different things. So as I think Brendan made mention, we saw in Seymour a gauge level of 6.8 metres achieved in the afternoon on Monday. Just for context, that compares, obviously we saw 8.23, 25, depending on sort of the gauge level you're looking at back in October 2022. In comparison, so the event we've just seen is in the order of a 1 in 5 AEP. And we saw a 1 in 80 AEP for context back in October 2022. So it's still an event we planned for. There's a lot of information available for that event, but it is down the lower end. But that's not to discount the fact that these events, any flood causes issues, causes stress, causes damage. So in terms of things you would have seen, and for people who have been around here a long time, you'll know this. For the people who are a bit newer, in terms of the history of flooding in Seymour, that puts it in between the 1993 event and the 1975 event. So 1993 was 6.65 and 1975 was just over 7 metres. That gives you that sort of context in there. Happy to take questions at the end. I'll be hanging around after if you want to come and talk to me one-on-one as well. I'll be here as long as people want to talk to me. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Joel. Our last speaker, since the 2022 floods, we've been fortunate enough to receive some funding and put their hub in place, and I do encourage you to reach out to the hub and reach out to the services of the hub. Someone that's been heavily involved has been our flood recovery manager, Kelly Mazuris. So Kelly, can you come forward, please? Thank you.
Hi everyone. Know a lot of faces in this room. We've been open since May last year. This is a community venue. Please feel free to pop in at any time. We've got a great coffee machine. We'd love to stop and talk to you all and have a chat about what your needs are so we can plan to wrap the services that are required around you. This is also the home of the Recovery Committee, so if you're looking to speak to them, you will find them in here a number of times throughout the week. So please come on down. It's good to see you all here.
Thank you, Kelly. So we'll open it up for questions now. I'm not sure, David, or whether we're able to take questions online, but we do have Sabrina out the back there with a microphone so that not only the people in the room can hear, but those people who are viewing online can hear. So happy for any questions, happy for any comments. Our agency people, representatives are happy for questions, and we do, as I mentioned earlier, have people available in the room to take questions as well. So we do have first questions, so perhaps you can just state your name and ask your question. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Faith McCauley from the Seymour Telegraph, and one of the questions I want to ask, I didn't get here, so I didn't know if it was tackled already. Some of the roads are closed. When can we expect it opening, and are there any places that needed repairs?
Happy to take that question. There's a number of roads that are still closed. Our Mayor touched on that earlier, and I think rather than go back over those, they're available on our website, on the front page of our website, Mitchell Shire Council website. There's a link you can click right through. Some of the roads will be closed for some period of time as we do assessments on them and do repairs on them, but we are trying to get as many roads open as soon as possible. But there are some that are still closed, probably about 8 to 10, I think. Down the front, Sabrina.
Thank you. My name is Bill and I live in Wallace Street. I'd like to comment on how the flood actually occurred. Now, most of the flood you would think would, if a river overflows, it would normally overflow its banks and make its way into the town. That's not what happened. The drains beside the roads constructed in such a way as that when you get too much water in them, they run back to front. And that's what happened here. One of the lowest areas in Seymour, and the first area that got flooded, was the roundabout at High Street and Wallace Street. And that's what was shown on TV. All that paddock was full of water. It got to the stage where the drains couldn't take any more of the rainwater away, and the water actually started to come back up through the drains. There's a lot of high area between there and the river, which was high and dry. But even from Safeway supermarket, the water was running down the street from there, and John and I went up to have a look and see where the water was coming from. It was coming up out of the drains and running down the street to the lowest area, to that roundabout, and flooding the surrounding areas. And the same thing happened at the intersection of Wallace Street and Industrial Court. The water was actually coming up through the drains and flooding that area. Now, I just wondered, why is that happening and what can be done to stop it?
Yep. Joel, are you happy to tackle that question a little bit? We had a quick discussion earlier on about that one.
Happy to touch on it. So what often happens is when you have, as you're saying, points that are low, when the river starts to get high, when you have the drainage outfalls into a stormwater system, they can start to what's called backflow. So water will actually come back up from the river. And when you've got a point lower in the town, and it could be any town, Seymour just an example, if the level in the river gets high enough, it'll come back. The easy way to stop that is to have what's called a backflow preventer on those pipes, or a penstock. Some of them are automatic, some of them are manual. I'm not sure if Seymour has those because that's a pipe issue, and pipes and pits are a matter for council's drainage. Certainly flooding from the river comes under the remit of the CMA, and we can assist council in some of the drainage issues, but pipes and pits are council's remit. So I'm sure Brett will probably follow up with the engineering department and council to get a better understanding as to what's happened in terms of those pipe behaviours that you saw.
Sorry, for those at home, Bill just mentioned a similar issue happened in 2022. So, thanks,
Hi.
Joel.
T.R. Keller. I'm working with a bunch of local businesses in regards to the insurance claims, and the lack of information regarding the drains and how it flows is a significant issue with insurers. Now, insurers will come back and take that information and say it was backflow, it's flood, no cover. But we know there is a backflow valve at the end of High Street into the river, which is causing all of the backflow in the catchment to come around the corner and flood these businesses. We have talked many a times to the engineering department and CMA in trying to get information as to how this can be improved, and everybody keeps throwing up their hands. Now, 1 in 100, 1 in 200 keep happening within 2 years. For these businesses, and especially for insurance to be able to recover, something within council and catchment authorities needs to be done to assist and protect going forward. So we're looking to understand what council will put on the agenda in order to address this significantly for these businesses, for homeowners, especially in that one area.
Yeah, all right. All right, well, thanks for that. Look, we'll take that on notice. I'm not sure what level of investigation has been done with our engineering team and with the CMA. Obviously, the protecting Seymour is something that's the highest priority. How do we ensure that minimal areas get flooded in these sorts of events? We understand the challenges with living next door to a river, and we understand the benefits and the positives about that. But we'll do as much as we can to protect the town. So we'll have a look at that and understand what opportunities there may exist. So happy to have the discussion with you about what you've found and what your investigations are finding as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Courtney Carroll. I own the mower shop now. That's been in our business for 30 years. We were probably half a metre off getting flood inside the shop again, and we're obviously on Wallace Street.
Yep.
So major issue that we've been screaming and yelling about since 2022, but nothing seems to be happening. Also, we can't afford flood cover. there's no mitigation or plans or that we know are happening. My house insurance, my house is flooded and we're still currently out of it. It's completely gutted still since 2022. My house insurance has gone from $3,000 to $19,500, so it's rose over 500%.
Yep.
I can't keep affording to pay for that as well. Just need some help,
Yeah, acknowledge that, Courtney. Mariella, were you talking about insurance and issues with insurance? Look, we understand, like, as I mentioned, the drainage is something we'll definitely investigate and take the learnings from what you've discovered so far and see what we can do in that space. Insurance is a real issue, something we've raised at the federal level, something we've raised at the state level, something we've raised with other councils who are in a similar position. Following the 2022 floods, we reached out to Lismore and all those other councils to try to push the insurance agencies to get better outcomes for our communities, particularly in this situation, Courtney. So I understand the concern. Mariella, did you want to touch on that?
Thank you, and it is quite a widespread issue, the problems with insurance, and we have actually put a submission into the the Commonwealth parliamentary inquiry into insurance. So hopefully we will have some clearer ideas on what the Commonwealth's views are on that in the coming months. But in the meantime, one of the things that we have done with other areas is to, and I'm not sure if this hub has also hosted, Danny, you might know the answer to that, the Insurance Council of Australia. They are very helpful in answering questions and supporting people to navigate through their insurers. Obviously, they're the peak body for insurance companies. That's not to say they have all the answers, but insurance stress is a very real problem in many of the communities that we work with, and something that we are acutely aware of. And that's where, I don't know if you, the person who asked the question, if you've had any contact with the legal services, and I think we've met before.
Yeah. I definitely have. I've tried to get some help, but they don't care.
Pardon?
The insurance companies don't care. There's no real help to, what do you do?
Have you had any contact with the legal services that are in place at the moment and the financial services?
Yeah, we did. There was still not much they could do to help us out. So they were looking into it, but nothing's come of it.
Okay, I might get your details and we'll have a bit more of a chat after the meeting if you like.
No worries.
Kelly, did you want to add something to that?
Our legal aid service providers who will provide additional support are back in tomorrow, Courtney. We'd love to see you come back and have a chat to them as well.
I have spoken to them and they did say that there wasn't much they could do to help out in regards to the private insurance with the house.
I'll come and speak to you after this. Thank you.
And the other thing, I can't just pick up and get more insurance with someone else because the house is completely gutted. So,
Thank you. We'll speak later. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Unfortunately, Courtney, that's the experience of a lot of people at the moment. So any way we can help, please reach out to Mariella and Kelly and we'll see what we can do for you. Any other questions in the room? Or any other questions online? David, I'm not sure whether we're able... No questions online at this stage? Gentleman at the front.
My name is Harold Joyce. I also own a business in Wallace Street, Seymour. Been affected by both the event this week and also the October 22 event. What I'm hearing today is that, first of all, we've acknowledged that this wasn't a riverine flood, that this was a stormwater event. I've also heard that the infrastructure for stormwater is a Shire responsibility. As a ratepayer, most of us in this room are ratepayers, don't feel protected by the Shire. We don't feel our rates are giving us the protection. What is it the Shire can do? We've had a meeting with the Shire last year about this very event. Yet I'm hearing today that this is news to you. You didn't know that this event is under investigation from the Shire. These overflowing gutters in this area that then inundate the homes and the workplaces. This is news to you, yet we've had a meeting with your people. Is this good enough, and what more can we expect from the Shire?
Yeah, thanks, Harold. Look, my team have been. If the team have met with you, they're obviously starting to explore the opportunities and what the challenges are and how we might deal with the situation. So if they've met with you, we'd like to take more information from the gentleman behind you and what they're finding, and particularly what other evidence is telling us. And then obviously there'll be work that we can potentially do, perhaps in partnership with the state and in partnership with the CMA, in partnership with other agencies, to try to mitigate as best we can the impacts that are caused by these significant rainfall events. Now, every flood is different, every situation is different, and we've acknowledged that this was a different event to obviously what happened in 2022, and rainfall patterns were different. So we have to take each event on its merit, and the drains in their current situation are not necessarily designed to take that significant rainfall dump in such a short space of time either. So it's really, what can we do to mitigate the situation, to ensure the best situation is in place to deal with the challenges that we're going to have. We know where Seymour sits in terms of its low-lying area compared to the river. So how can we best deal with that, and work with you as a community to get those outcomes as well, and work with our flood recovery committee as well. So I'm saying today, I mean, the fact that the team's met with you and the team's been working with you is a great outcome. Does that always have to come back to the CEO and tell the CEO what they're doing? We've got so many agencies happening, so many things happening on so many levels across the organisation, and Kelly and the team have been working closely with the community on the recovery side of things, and having this event happen so quickly after the last one, we're keen to mitigate as best we can within the resources we have, obviously. So happy to have a further chat with you, Harold, as well.
So let's get it clear. The advice I've been given from your investigation team is it's been put on your table to look into this, and the advice I've been given from your investigation team as of yesterday is that you're non-committal one way or the other. That's your own team, sir.
Okay. Happy to take that on board, Harold, but I'm not sure where you're getting that advice, so I'm happy to have a chat with you after. Any other questions from the room? Yep.
Hi. Our house is High Street, corner of Elizabeth and High Street.
Sorry, what was your name?
Robert Metzke.
Robert, yep.
Yep. Ours would have probably been one of the first that would go under. We're just wondering, ERV have been pretty keen to wrap things up lately and be able to move past the 22 floods. What's going to be happening there with, following on from this lot?
Yep. Ariel, are you happy to touch on that, whether the response from ERV in relation to this? And thank you.
So can I just clarify, is your question specifically about the clean-up program?
Yeah, we still haven't got the keys back for the property. We're waiting for Make Safe to finish. And even where we've had builders come in to give quotes on rebuilding cupboards and that, they can't give us a quote because in the Make Safe, they've put drywall up and haven't addressed the issues of the damage to the stumps and foundations of the building. So the builders that have come in to give quotes said we can't quote because the floor's all up and down like this, and now that the plasterboard's been put on, they can't do the stumps. We're just wondering what help we're going to get going on from today.
Okay, without knowing the specific details of your case, I can ask our director, so Christian George is the director of the clean-up program. I can ask him to give you a call and get your specific concerns and work through how to address them. So our clean-up program and Make Safe is still working its way through. It takes a long time to do the clean-up and the Make Safe. But I'm sure that there's a next step. So I'll get Christian to give you a call if that's okay, and we'll work our way through. Thank you.
We'll grab your details, Robert, and pass those on. Any further? Yep, Courtney.
Just in regards to Eildon, obviously the SES said that the pattern of rain was just unpredictable, didn't know where it was going to go. Eildon said they didn't get a lot of rain up there. They're sitting at a really high percentage. What if you'd got that massive lot of rain up there in the catchment area? Like, what would the outcome have been coming downstream rather than letting out 1 meg? Last 2022, you let out 38,000 meg or something. Would have that looked different for Seymour if the rain landed up in that catchment rather than Sunday Creek and we just seen the worst of whatever was coming from that catchment? Yeah. If it landed up the other area, would we have been flooded again by the Goulburn because of Eildon being so full?
Do you want to touch on that one, Andrew? Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Courtney, for the question. So similar to the October 22 event, we did see a lot of that rainfall in this local catchment. So we did see that water through Sugarloaf Creek and Sunday Creek being that initial peak of water that came through the system. So that obviously happened in the last few days. So if we did have those type of totals in the Eildon catchment, it would have meant that we would have had more inflow obviously into the dam, and we would have needed to make some releases. It's very hard to say what they would have been depending on the circumstances, but we've got options at Eildon where we can release a little bit of water ahead, but also use our airspace to try and buffer those higher flows to try and keep the outflows as low as possible. So yeah, we would have had a higher release, but what I think would have happened was we would have just had a longer tail, but I don't believe we would have added to the peak of the flow, which is the same instance what happened in October 22. Eildon releases happened after the peak occurred at Seymour. So I think that might have had higher flows for longer, but again, not adding to what the peak flow is.
Andrew, do you want to just talk about how long it takes for flows to get from Eildon to Seymour?
Yeah, so it's about 48 hours by the time.
That amount that you let out 2022, you're saying that didn't have, by the time, it wouldn't have had that impact on Seymour by the time it got through?
That's correct, yeah. So the peak at Seymour in October 22 was driven by the local catchment. All of that peak level occurred prior to us increasing those releases from Eildon. So
our business was still underwater 4 days later. Would that been contributed to Eildon coming down, or?
Hard to say whether that's a lot. So yeah, 48 hours, but again, it's where that local water is from and where the flowing water is. I suppose it might.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Not sure about whether that's the standing water or not. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Albie Hendricks. I've got a property down in Hannah Street, which has been severely impacted in October 22. Now, is there a reason that at that particular time of the year is when we usually would expect sort of the rains that we had, that Eildon would be so full? Or was that we were just lucky or unlucky?
Are you talking about this
no,
year?
In October 22. Why Eildon is kept so full at that particular time of the year where we've had the spring rains?
Yeah, so prior to October 22, the dam was at about 97.5% of capacity, so it's close to full. So at that time of the year, we're leading into the end of the filling season, if you like, so that winter and spring is generally when we get most of our runoff into the dams. Lake Eildon's primary purpose there is for water supply. So that's why we use that airspace and try and manage that space as best we can to try and minimise those outflows and buffer those high inflows into the dam. So at the moment there isn't a designated flood capacity at Lake Eildon. We do what we can to try and minimise the outflows and buffer those flows as much as we can.
Okay.
Sorry, my name's Dean Crawley. I'm just in Emily Street. I just wanted to ask, can you explain to the people the policy that Eildon has regarding heights? It seems to be sitting at 98% and above. And I've got to tell you, I'm nervous every time it rains. What is the reason for holding that much water that is 48 hours away from a township? When I read today in a news feed that it was declared El Nino event, but then there was a southern hydration event. So then it says it's unpredictable, we can't tell how much rainfall we've got. So if that's the professionals telling us that they can't understand where the rain's going to fall, how much is going to fall and when it will happen, why are we holding a lake that's got so many townships all the way down? Why are we holding a lake at 98% when you can't even explain that an El Nino event?
Yeah, we're in the same boat as everybody else as far as the unpredictability of the weather. And while the policy or the policy around Lake Eildon and all of our other water storages is they're there for water supply purposes as the primary purpose, we do have the ability to try and mitigate flooding where we can. So that's the challenge that we have as storage operators, trying to pick what the weather is going to do.
Do you think over a dry spell you'd use 80% of the whole lake?
No.
Never ever?
No.
So why would
not
we
in one year.
cap it at 80%? Then if we do have an event, we've got 20% of water can flow in to compensate. Why are we holding it at high 90s? And I'll revert back to the Wivenhoe Dam issue in Queensland that I saw many years ago. I think this is a similar incident that happened up there.
Yeah, so Wivenhoe is a little bit different because it does have a designated flood mitigation capacity, which the storage operators up there use to mitigate floods. It does have the water supply component, but yeah, while it's a water supply storage, it's there for having it so high is there to protect for the other end of the spectrum where we have dry conditions and prolonged drought, which those conditions we haven't seen for a number of years now, but back through the millennium drought and things, having extra water in the storage prior to that occurring would have been beneficial at that time. So yeah, that's the trade-off. But unfortunately, Goulburn Water is under that instructions and our policies around water supply is the problem.
So the policy is hold as much as you can?
Well,
at all times?
Not at all times. So during the winter and spring, we have what's called a filling target or filling curve. So we don't go into winter with it sitting full. We sort of work towards filling targets through that winter and spring and then look to have it full in that October, November timeframe, which is when those inflows start to fall away. And traditionally, that's when the demand for water starts to come on and we start releasing the water to meet irrigation requirements.
Yep. Just very nervous people here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And
no, that's all right.
I do, yeah.
I did have one more question, but it was more for the Shire, but if anyone else wants to talk about the lake.
Any further questions about Lake Eildon at this stage? We can always come back to it. No, touch on your next one.
It was only about, and I just noticed in October 22, the Coles shopping centre complex, that was, from what I remember, built with a flood mitigation system in it, and that was the reason it got a permit to build where it is. It was a shutter system. Now, the shutters weren't used in October 22, and then again on Monday, good friends of mine had to sandbag the whole complex. So why isn't the shutter system being used? We've taken all these valuable resources from houses and other businesses, and this thing was built with a shutter system, and you see the channels on the doors, and you can drop the shutters in, and there's your flood mitigation. And there's, I don't know how many hundreds of sandbags are sitting around the Coles complex.
Yep.
Why isn't the system being used?
Very good question. It's probably something we need to take up with the landowner, I think, the operator of the space. Our economic development team's been out speaking to businesses, and perhaps we can touch on that with the businesses as we go through to understand why they weren't used, were they trained in using them, why they, in future situations, they should be in place, because as you say, other resources can go elsewhere. So, any other questions? No. Harold?
Mine's back to the management of Eildon. Questions around lessons learnt 2022 and again today. And again, who makes the decisions? I understand that you're instructed by your shareholders, your overseas shareholders. Are you putting money and profits over the risk of people downstream? And what lessons are learnt and what lessons are you taking on from the 2022 and the 2024 floods?
So to answer just the first part of your question there around how we manage it and why we do for our shareholders. So we have water entitlement holders who own the rights to use that water. We manage it on their behalf. We don't take payments from Water Corp from them to manage it in a particular way. That all Goulburn Water receives is what we call water entitlement storage fees. So everyone who owns 1 megalitre of high reliability water shares pay Goulburn Water a fee for that, and that's to help us operate and manage the storage. So there isn't any preferential treatment or anything like that.
Can I put in there? We're actually a not-for-profit organisation. So there's no profits or shareholders. We have customers. They pay for our services. There's no profits. Just not
Yeah.
profit. Yeah.
Thanks, Martina. Sorry, again, can you just repeat the second part of your question? Lessons learnt, was that the...
Lessons learnt from 2022, 2024, what have they taken on and how do they go back to the original agenda for building the dam for both water storage and flood mitigation under its original construction?
Yeah, so as far as lessons learned, we've obviously there hasn't been a flood through, or prior to October 22, there hadn't been a flood through Eildon since 1996. So yeah, again, a lot of the staff who are managing that have been able to go through that experience, just like the other people in the communities in the valley. So yeah, we've got another data set, if you like, of what inflows can do into the system and how that can be managed. But also, how we look at implementing some of those strategies to minimise those outflows, looking at releasing water ahead of rain events, but also how do we best manage any particular space we have in the dam. So it's an ongoing process for us.
Sorry to bother you. Also, the Department of Energy Climate Action and their environment, they're doing a review of how Eildon is operated, because there are operating rules that we need to, I suppose, operate the dam as per the Water Act. And coming out of the 2022 floods, the department have committed to doing this review, and I think the results of that review are due in March. So we're very, very supportive of this, and I agree there is lots and lots of lessons learned. Every event is different, and different circumstances, floods, I suppose, how they eventuate are different. So we're really looking forward to seeing this review, and I think it's going to be out in the next couple of months. And I think even what's happened just in the last couple of weeks and over Christmas as well, that will probably feed into that final review of that report. So yeah, and we're looking forward to seeing how we can improve the operations of Eildon based on our learnings from these events. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay, there is an online question. Kelly, would you like to read that one out?
One of our community members would be interested to know who owns the rights to the water. Are they locals or are they foreigners?
So the water entitlements are owned by, they could be irrigators, they could be investors, they're water corporations, so the likes of Golden Valley Water, Colburn Water, they own water to supply towns. The environmental water holders have access to that water. So there's a wide range of water entitlement holders that make up the volume that's in the dam. That answers the question.
Yep. Thanks, Andrew. There is one question in the middle here. Yes.
Just a question to ask Goulburn Valley Water again. At what level is it 100% that it spills uncontrolled, or do you have a higher level than 100%?
So to answer,
what level does it spill uncontrolled? So over the top of the spillway. So an uncontrolled spill, is it what percentage of the dam?
Sorry.
Hi, sorry, thanks a million for the question. It's quite, Eildon operates a little bit differently to most dams. It has got gates. So Eildon has never operated uncontrolled. So when we lift the gates, it's usually when we're at 100 or above 100%, and we're managing the flows or the height of the water inside the dam. So it's all controlled. So even when we open up the gates, that's purposely opening up the gates to manage the flow of water through the storage.
So it can go over 100%?
Absolutely, and it does. Just by pure, when we get to that levels, and during 2022.
So what percentage can it go to before it spills uncontrolled?
So it is never spilled under control, and our management of the dam would ensure that we never have it spilling uncontrolled, because then that actually becomes a dam safety emergency. And that it becomes critical.
So 100% doesn't mean a lot to us. So what is the percentage above the gates that you can control back? That's what I want to know.
So we can control, I suppose, I suppose we tried to manage the storage to 100%. During the 2022 floods, we worked very, very closely with the Bureau of Meteorology and on the stream gauge coming in, and we developed a release plan to manage the downstream releases to minimise, I suppose, impacts. And we developed a plan that we actually surcharged the dams, and what I mean by that, we actually went purposely above 100% to hold the water back to minimise the downstream impacts. And then we released it over the next coming days and weeks to get it back down to 100%.
So what percentage can you hold
It's not
over?
a percentage. It doesn't work that way, sorry. It's trying, I suppose when we operate the dam at these times, our number one concern is the safety of the dam. If the dam failed, which is what you're talking about, of trying to bring it way above 100%, we would wipe out the valleys. You can imagine the tons of water that would come down. So our number one concern is the safety of the dam, because that means the safety of all the communities downstream, the whole way right through to the Murray and South Australia probably. So that's our number one thing we have to do. So we would not allow the dam to go too far above 100%. So that decision in October 2022, that was a significant decision to minimise the impacts downstream and to keep the outflows at 38,000 megalitres, because we knew above that Thornton was going to be impacted. It was, again, the towns and villages directly downstream of the dam. That's what we were trying to protect. So when we do these things, it's done, it's planned to precision. And that's it. Sorry, I hope that answered. I can't really answer your question exactly like that, but dam safety is number one, followed by, managing the downstream impacts from releases from the dam. Thanks.
Thank you, Martina. Yes, Robert.
One for council. October 22 floods, the first emergency meeting afterwards at the high school. There was mention then of the possibility of rates relief for ratepayers. I know the council quickly decided they couldn't do that because it had meant having to devalue all the properties in the area. However, it's 15 months down the track and we look like being back at square one again. At what point, is there a possibility of some sort of rates relief for ratepayers?
It's probably something I'll need to take on notice, I think, Robert, because I think the overall, what's the package of support that you need you and people in your situation need to get through this situation? I mean, rate relief is probably a minor part of all that. What other supports are there that we can get you through with working with our key agencies to ensure that you're back in your property as soon as possible? So it's not something that we'll answer today, but what's the package of support that can be put into place and what part can we play? And that's probably the bigger part for us, I think. Any other questions? Yes, gentleman at the front. Just Sabrina. It's probably on. Yeah.
Yeah, Brian Maskell. I'm in one of the units in High Street, the 31 High Street, the old motel, and we're in trouble anyway because we had a fire. So the fire has meant the insurance have got to do their work first. Then the make safe can be completed. Then I've got to get my own tradie in to do the rest, like put a kitchen in and all the rest of it. So I have been out of my place for 14 months. I've paid all my rates up. I don't get a rebate on that because I'm not there. Would that be a possibility?
Again, Brian, it's probably something that we'll need to take on board. There's lots of absentee landowners out there, and similar people in your position who are not in their properties for one reason or another. I guess it's something that we'll need to have a chat with you about, but it's not something that we have a policy that for absentee or people who aren't in their property. Rate relief is not something that is a policy within council at this stage.
Yeah, what I was thinking was you can find out which people can't go into their property because it's not inhabitable, in which case you could only then just give them the help and not the others.
Yeah, okay, we'll take that on board.
It's just a thought.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there's no further questions, can I thank you all for coming? Can I thank the speakers too? Can you please thank the speakers for their time today and for being up front as well? Can I acknowledge the volunteers that have put in hours of effort to support the community and provide that, the SCS, all the community volunteers as well who've been there for the township of Seymour again. I acknowledge this rainfall event happened right across our municipality again. It was the catchments that were impacted, and you heard earlier on from our colleagues the significant rainfall in areas like Ashes Bridge and even Kilmore and down through Wallen. We had properties affected as well. So can I thank you all for your time? Can I please ensure that you don't stay there and stew on questions? If you have any concerns, if you have anything that you want to raise, if you have any challenges, please come and talk to us here at the Recovery Hub. Kelly's in charge of the Recovery Hub here, Kelly Mazuris. This is a resource for you. This is a resource that's here for the community, and we're really fortunate to have this resource at this time on the back of what happened in 2022, but this community hub is here for you. So please reach out. Please don't sit there wondering what to do. Please don't hesitate to reach out. So again, thank you so much. Can I thank you all for those who have joined us online, and we'll conclude the event there. Thank you so much.